Hello everyone and welcome back to Unity of Command. This is the campaign scenario Vistula-Oder or Vistula-Oder from the Red Turn DLC. Welcome to 1945. There are only 3 scenarios left and yeah, we're nearing the end of the war. What you're going to see is the first attempt for this scenario. I think it's a very easy one from a force perspective, so from a military force perspective. This is the most lopsided scenario in this whole DLC and one of the most lopsided ones in the whole game. In our favor, it's tilted totally in our favor, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's read the text. The Vistula front has been a stalemate for months as the Soviets turned their attention to the Baltic states and the Balkans. Both sides have sent reinforcements during the autumn and early winter, but the Germans are still weak. And that's quite an understatement. As you can see, we outnumber the Axis forces around 2-1, but regarding armor steps, it's actually 3-1. But that doesn't really tell the tale, because there are so many units available for us that it literally didn't fit the map. So you start out turn 1 with a bunch of infantry units in reserve that you can spawn on the map once you have moved away from the Axis. So in reality, we outnumber the Axis forces more than 3-1. We also get 2 air attacks per turn each turn, and yeah, and so this is a very uneven battle once again from a military perspective. Yeah, let's take a look at this map. This was a huge success for the Soviets. Of course, in reality, I mean, the front line was very weak, like as it's depicted here, and could not hold the pressure. It literally crumbled immediately. So this is the map. This map is relatively large and it has a weird shape. It's like we're coming from one pocket and we need to advance to another pocket. But as you can immediately see, we extremely heavily outnumber the opposition, which is pretty insignificant, to be perfectly honest. And already by the end of turn 1, you should achieve a breakthrough, and by the end of turn 2, there shouldn't be much remaining of the AI's forces. That being said, the scenario designer decided to make it a little bit challenging by having extremely short time limits, so strict time limits to capture our objectives. There is a ton of them. We have 6 objectives to capture. Let's take a look at them one by one. First one is Krakow, or Krakow, from in the extreme south. Major industrial center, right? It was also the capital or administrative center of German-occupied Poland, the Generalgouvernement. So it's a significant city, to be taken by the end of turn 2. This is not at all difficult. As you can see, it's defended by a green unit, so it is a real pushover. Then we have Łódź, or Litzmannstadt in German, in the middle of the map. Gateway to Western Poland, to be taken by the end of turn 3. I think this could be a bit challenging, simply because of the distance, but otherwise it's okay. I will talk about the terrain in a while, and the forces, obviously. In the extreme southwest, we have flank protection. This is a clear hex, by the way. Stalin insists that the flanks be protected before a push towards Berlin is made. To be taken by the end of turn 4. Right, another green unit, weak, with just 4 steps, no specialist steps, holding this one. This is a pushover objective. It basically only means that you need to come here for all intents and purposes. Then we have in the northeast Warsaw. Avenge the failure of the initial Soviet attempt to seize the city, also to be taken by the end of turn 4. And that's really interesting. You might be thinking, wow, we're literally standing next to the Victory X, and we are. But this is one of I think this is the only area, this little pocket here, that you cannot capture by frontal assault, just simply bashing your face against it. Instead, you actually have to do a complete flank maneuver, and coming from Łódź here, Litzmannstadt, to capture the capital here, the capital of Poland. You can cut them off, and we will do that, and that's how you ensure success here. I highly recommend you avoid this area. I mean, you don't attack frontally until you have basically won everywhere else. Then, in the extreme north, in the middle, we have Bydgoszcz, which was Bromberg at the time. The city protects the flank of the German forces in East Prussia. Capturing it will make their current position untenable, to be taken by the end of turn 5. Now, this is an easy objective. It's held by a standard infantry unit, but as you can see, the distances that we need to cover are quite extreme, and so that's the only real challenge here on this map. Maybe Warsaw is a bit difficult, but other than that, it's just to get everywhere in time. Then in the extreme northwest, we have Küstrin outskirts. Establish a line at the Oder to facilitate further advances towards Berlin, to be taken by the end of turn 7, and this is actually quite a generous objective. I think it could be taken by the end of turn 6, barely. So this is not at all difficult. It's another clear hex, and yeah, these are our objectives. Now let's take, weather is not going to be a problem. It's midwinter, so everything is frozen, but you shouldn't have any issues. Let's take a look at the terrain. As you can see, the front line here is mainly along the Vistula River or Weichsel River, but we have bridgeheads in quite a few places. And so your first objective is to exploit those bridgeheads and just break out everywhere. This is not at all difficult. So everything south of this bend of the river is easy to just annihilate. Once again, do not engage into this pocket, because especially not here where there are city hexes beyond the river lines. So that would be totally suicidal. And after that, there is not much to report, really. This river won't pose a threat or a challenge or a problem at all. And since the AI won't be able to put up any meaningful resistance, or basically any resistance at all beyond the initial push, you can just simply ignore any terrain difficulties. What you have to be worried about is your supply. Not that it's bad, it's excellent actually. Our supply lines, and there are three places where our supply lines enter the map from the east, and on each and every one of them we have a supply source with a range of 8. All supply sources have ranges of 8, by the way. The same is true for the Axis forces, the German forces. Anytime or any place the supply route enters the map, they have a supply source with ranges of 8 on it. So it's not really plausible or possible to cut off huge chunks of units from either side. The only exception is, of course, the Warsaw pocket, which I highly recommend you try and cut off as soon as you can. Now, the thing is that we need to make sure that our supply line is secure, otherwise our forward rushing units, which have to really advance at breakneck speed towards the further objectives, so that they don't run out. And what that means is that the main supply route would be through Warsaw, but you are not going to be able to capture it for quite a long time. Actually, I think I captured it fully, I mean the supply route here, on turn 5, which is after one turn after the victory hex. It needs to be captured. So what that means is that you need to clear out this road all the way. This is not difficult per se, but you just have to pay attention to it, otherwise you might get bogged down. Another interesting thing is that the only unit that is stationed not on a victory hex beyond the front lines is sitting in Poznan, which is Posen, and it's not a victory hex. As I said, it's a city. It's a relatively strong unit, and it's kind of an issue because it's sitting on top of our supply line, our only supply line at this moment. However, it's not really a problem because, as you can see, thankfully we have one hex beyond the bridge. So if you capture this hex and manage to link up the connection, so if you manage to isolate the city itself, then that means that our supply starts counting down from this hex, and this should be enough at least to reach until here. So you don't, strictly speaking, need to capture the city, this city. I will do that because why not, but it's not really another objective, even a secondary objective. It's not important, I would say. Alright, forces. As you can see, there are quite a few, so every victory hex is occupied by an infantry unit, and a lot of them have the AA guns, which means that they cannot be bombed. You cannot use the air attack special action against them, unless it's suppressed or destroyed, of course. But it's not really, in general, it's not a great idea to bomb cities anyway. As for the Axis forces, let's start with them. There are fewer Axis units on the map by far than what we field. Well, they have a few panzer divisions, but the ones without this one, without any specialist step, is a pushover. The ones that have specialist steps can be quite formidable, but they're only strong as long as they're really strong as they're entrenched. Otherwise, they field 5+1 steps. We already have a lot of these better units, so these upgraded stat units. And we also have a few of the older ones, by the way, and I just made sure that no, it's not the differences are not related to experience. If this unit gets promoted to veteran, the stats stay the same. So basically, don't attack these units on turn 1, but once they move, feel free to do that. And in the north, around Warsaw, we have the strongest units the AI fields. One of them is the Brandenburg Panzer Grenadier Division. Don't underestimate this one. 5+1 specialist steps with great stats. And the elite HG Panzer Division. I don't know what HG stands for here. But Heeresgruppe, perhaps. It has a new specialist step, the Jagdpanzer 4L/70, which is an excellent specialist step against armor, as it gives +2 shift, so don't underestimate this one as well. And this unit is elite, so yeah, it's a really formidable one. Use your air attack against it. I recommend using that, and you can also try to use your cavalry units against it once it's weakened. This specialist step is not really excellent against infantry targets. They also have a normal motorized division, which is the 20th Panzer Grenadier Division. Other than these units, which are not pushovers, but we outnumber them so heavily that they don't matter, the front line consists of standard infantry units, which are okay-ish, and they have a few specialist steps like this Kampfgruppe Pionierbrigade, which has Pioniere attached to them, or a Stück here, another Stück there. They are not dangerous at all. Just try to pick your targets, and you can actually plow through them, mow them down already on turn 1. Basically, most everything south of, so in this area, will disappear by the end of turn 1, and by the end of turn 2, everything will disappear. Yeah, here around Warsaw, things will be a bit different. As for our forces, we have the Poles, once again, the 1st Polish Army with T-34s. They are very weak otherwise, so they're fully reinforced, and of course they have the specialist step, so be aware of that. They're not that excellent, even weaker than our standard Soviet infantry units normally. We have quite a few guns as always, especially in the south, which is great, where you can use them to crack open the entrenched defenses and just pour through the gaps. We have a ton of mobile units, a few cavalry units, which are, of course, as always, veteran 6+1 steps with the T-34 attachments, and we have a lot of armored units, which we know to be excellent, but some are better than the others. So, for instance, this unit is an excellent asset. It's probably one of the best units on the battlefield. Or no, it's actually going to be this one with the IS-2, Joseph Stalin 2 tanks. This is probably the best unit in the battlefield overall. Maybe this Panzer division is slightly superior, but not much can stand against this one. Yeah, so as you can see, we heavily outnumber the enemy units, but what you have to pay attention to is that you don't get bogged down. Force allocation is really key here, so break through and immediately start to rush towards the objective. So I recommend a push here along this angle, so southwest of this river, and of the Varta river, and another push along these the two other objectives, and then converge around Poznan. I guess that's the best strategy. You will also have to allocate a few units back to the east towards Warsaw to help you capture this victory X. So even though we have a ton of units and ton of armored units, and we absolutely do, because of the extremely strict deadlines we have, it's actually, you need to be careful on how you allocate them. Now, I already mentioned that we are going to spawn a whole bunch of units on infantry units on turn 1, and after like turn 4 or so, most of the infantry units will become totally useless, and they won't be able to keep pace with the tanks rushing forward. And once the area around the final area of the front line around Warsaw is cleared out, then you can just let them be, and they're not really useful for anything at all. Alright, so let's see how it went. First, the breakout. As you can see, the idea is very simple. We are going to try to assault at their weakest spots. And yes, this is how strong we are. We overran and they totally destroyed the entrenchment. This is a weak formation. They are standard, and with standard so quite low stats. But we managed to dig out this. We carve out this little nook here, and we already reached the first objective of Krakow, and this was okay-ish. Now we really need to capitalize on this, and I wasn't very happy about this result. I was hoping that we would be able to destroy this unit or get it further weakened. Fortunately, it will only receive one step back as reinforcements, so this zur besonderen Verfügung 601 unit is going to be destroyed the next turn, obviously. I think if you get a bit more lucky, you can actually capture Krakow on your first turn. Not that it's like necessary or anything, but that's how easy it is. Alright, we are bringing our best unit, overrun, and destroy. Alright, that's good enough. I tried to make sure to use all my valuable units in the front, and now we are going to soon start spawning the units, I think. Bang, that was painful. Yeah, I can put up quite some resistance, but as long as so as long as we are losing only infantry steps, standard infantry steps, I don't care. We have an infinite amount of infantry units also in reserve, so you don't need to worry about losses regarding the infantry. And I was wrong, we are not yet spawning the units. We are trying to break out here as well. There is another this is another little breachhead, and we succeed. And in our final breachhead, we breach the enemy formations, and after a bit of reshuffling, sending the tanks forward, we actually managed to achieve a breakthrough. I want to widen this gap. This is not really a great setup at the moment. And we attack the infantry first because the panzer divisions are dug in, and of course they're much stronger as long as they're entrenched, but they're going to move out of position the next turn, so that they're better targets. This was the weakest panzer division on the map, and our attack meant that we lost our Katyushas. This was definitely not worth it. So out of revenge, I tried to bomb it twice, which doesn't help, so we don't deal with any casualties. These units are totally cut off, separated, but most importantly, this unit moved. What that means is that, of course, it lost its entrenchment, and now it's a pushover. We will clear these out. It's not a really difficult achievement, but we will clear out this little pocket. And as you can see already at this moment, we have won. We cannot be held off anymore. Our supply situation is great. The few units that are still on the front line will be totally separated, cut off, and nothing will be able to stop us or even slow us down. And then we'll just start spawning units, and these newly spawned units will be good enough to destroy this straggler, and it will. Yep. And as I've said, try to rush ahead as far as you can, as much as you can. I actually reorganized that unit so that in the next turn I didn't have any idea what to do with all these infantry units, so I decided to reorganize them so I have reinforcements that I can allocate in the next turn. And another thing is, don't assault here, as I've said. So I pushed this unit forward. We're not really afraid of infantry losses, and I was hoping that the AI would lose units on the other when attacking it and trying to push it back. But don't assault here. That would be just bloody, and you wouldn't achieve anything. You're not going to achieve anything. I don't think so, at least. And you have the time, so there is no rush either. Alright, after a bit of reshuffling, this is how we finish our turn 1. These units are totally cut off. Their situation is hopeless. Basically, the AI situation is totally hopeless here in the southern front sector. These few units won't stop us. They will be destroyed. Around Warsaw, the situation is stable, obviously. So, yeah. The AI decides to send one of the two greatest units to the south to stem our advance here. This is actually a good position. There is a river here, and it's sitting between a river and the forest line, so it has the potential of slowing us down. And it sends the other one to try to weaken the push around Warsaw, or to stabilize that front line there. It also does a bit of reshuffling. This is a relatively stable front sector for the AI, I mean. But obviously this is not going to be sufficient to stop us, I mean. Alright, the AI launches an attack. I think this was a bad idea, but I'm happy for it. And it even moves out with this Volksgrenadier division. This is I think it's a new type of division. I don't know if you've seen Volksgrenadier before. They have weaker stats, but don't underestimate them. They're not that much weaker. Actually, they have surprised me in the past with their tenacity. Maybe it has to do something with having an armor step, because then we could probably get some shifts against them or something along those lines. But yeah, don't underestimate them. These are decent units. So it's holding the city. And it has a decent unit composition here. I'm not going to deny that. It has put up a front line here as well, and if you can call it a front line here. Next turn we are going to obviously remove almost all of this, and the AI is going to keep receiving one infantry step each turn. So that's what it's going to allocate each and every turn of its own. All right, turn 2. We are crossing the river since the AI abandoned this position, and we're pushing on. There is no need to withdraw that unit or to reorganize it or anything. Don't worry about infantry losses. You will literally never run out of infantry. As long as it makes sense, then just use them to the best of your advantage. I decide to capture the victory hex now. This is not difficult. And yes, and immediately rush ahead. So don't get bogged down in the fighting. That's one of the crucial points of this map, because I know there are still quite some forces here, but they won't be able to stem our tide, and we absolutely need to rush as soon as we can. We need to capture this victory hex the next turn, and afterwards this on turn 4 and this on turn 5. So we really don't have time to dawdle. Yeah, this might have looked bad, but once again, infantry losses against, well, if we manage to cause decent losses against infantry, then it's using our infantry, then it's fine. And I use the air attacks on this unit, which is the best AI controlled unit on the battlefield, I think. And we get extremely lucky. We get, by 2 air attacks, 6 suppression, which is excellent. We overrun this unit in our first meeting with it. And now I decide to try to remove, them, or many of them, as many of them as I can. These are of course not pushovers, but once again, we know for sure that the only resistance remaining are the victory objectives on the other ends of the map. And once this unit is fully suppressed, the infantry can take care of the rest. We also decide to destroy this unit so that we don't get bogged down. Once again, we don't really need to worry about losses. We just need to clear out as much of the enemy as possible so that we have more, you know, control of the map and more operational freedom. Bang. Overrun. Alright, don't use tanks for this purpose, as I've said repeatedly. The tanks would be put to better use doing this. And this. I was hoping to corner this unit. This is on our bend of the river, so there is a little gap. It will be resupplied, but I was hoping that if we could manage to force it to retreat, it would get cornered and we could just remove it off the map, but that didn't materialize, unfortunately. And yeah, and with your fast moving units, so with your armor and your cavalry, don't stop. Don't ever get bogged down. The infantry can take care of these frontline enemy infantry units, even with losses. I mean, you shouldn't worry about that. And yep, and this one gets destroyed as well. Alright, and it's turn 2, and at this moment the only unit south of the river, the Vistula River band here is this one, which is theoretically on our side of the river. Everything else is destroyed. Oh, and sorry, in this one, I don't predict a bright future for this unit, and the next turn it won't be able to attack. We will wait with it and remove it in the next turn, I believe. Alright, around Warsaw we are just preparing for the eventual siege and assault. And yeah, just a bit more of reshuffling of the units, and we'll be done. Also be mindful of your supply hexes, but an infantry unit, even against the Brandenburgers, will hold the line across the river, and if not, then that's not really a bad loss. If you can cause them some casualties, that would still be grand. I'm going to stop moving all of my units once Warsaw is cleared out, but up until then I thought that they would still be of some use, so I micromanage them. It's a bit annoying. Okay, the AI decides to use the same strategy as before, tries to weaken our little breach, and I was quite surprised at this. This division retreated. I guess it was afraid of being cut off. And so we have the breach connection now, and we can rush for the victory hex from the south as well. And I think the AI also used some reinforcements, received reinforcements. Not sure about that. Yes, here at Luch. This was a mistake. It should have put it to some of the northernmost units, because we are going to capture this city X the next turn and destroy this unit. So this step will never come out of suppression, so it was a mistake to put it to the Wuch garrison. But whatever. Yeah, let's start with that. It's on this turn that we need to achieve it. Fortunately, it doesn't put up too much of a fight. I mean, it has an 88 gun, which is excellent against armor. So, well, yeah, as you can see here. So actually, it was quite a decent achievement. I should put it that way. But now we capture the city, and of course, this unit is not going to do anything the next turn. I decide to bomb the other really strong unit on the battlefield that the AI has, now that that Panzer division is destroyed. There's not much I can use the air attacks on, so I cannot bomb these these hexes, and this is totally pointless to bomb. And I'm afraid that by bombing city axes we would turn them into ruins, so that's not a good proposition. So yeah, the Brandenburg Panzergrenadier division is now down to 2+1 active steps. So let's try to capitalize on this success, kind of sort of manage. Yep, we try to remove the, yes, and we do remove the final Panzer division off the map. We don't want to leave the victory hex, and this was actually important because Katowice is in on the supply route, so we absolutely must capture at least this city, so to ensure that supply goes to the north. I'm not afraid that there are so many red hexes here. In a moment they will all be, once this hex and these hex are captured, then they will all be okay, and of course in this turn we will be able to capture both of them. Now, as you can see, this flank protection victory objective is not at all difficult. We already removed the unit from it, and we actually captured the victory X and push on forward. It wasn't due on this turn, it was only due next turn. And with this move, our supply runs up until here, so it's excellent. Everything is fully in supply. That's great. So we can turn our attention to Warsaw. As I've said, this is probably one of the two more difficult objectives. But if we manage to cut them off this turn, which I'm pretty sure we can, then that means that if we capture this city hex on our turn 4, then on their turn 4 the AI forces won't be able to mount a counterattack. So that is our objective, to cut them off on this turn and to capture the city hex on the next turn. And the other units can stay here and just rot away until they totally get depleted out of supply, and then we can just remove them. So as a first measure, I try to use this infantry gun to breach the victory X. It doesn't work out, unfortunately. Yep, but that was a decent idea, I'd say. Now let's remove this final straggler unit in the south. Once again, we are not going to use any of our units here for anything, so any losses here are totally acceptable. And at this moment, we managed to finally cut the Warsaw garrison fully off. So, so yeah, their fate is sealed, so to speak. They have only one turn to attack, and yeah, and afterwards it's all gone. And we remove the witch garrison remnants off the map so that they're not annoying. Even the Poles have finally crossed the river. And yeah, I think this is the last turn that I bother with the infantry units, but at this moment I'm still not sure if I need them. Or actually, I'm pretty sure I can use them in this area. So these movements are not at all pointless. And of course, in the south, I remove units. I was still hoping that these units would be got up to something, and I didn't know, since this was the first attempt, I didn't know if the AI was receiving any reinforcements. That's why I'm also trying to clear out as much of the map as possible. So at the end of our turn, our supply reaches until here, and we have basically captured 2 of the 3 AI-controlled supply sources. I know this is technically not captured, but it's not going anywhere. Our supply situation is great. There is nothing standing against us at all. I mean, literally 3 units are in supply, and we need to remove the Warsaw garrison, or at least occupy this hex the next turn. Yeah, we also managed to connect up from here as well. So the AI is pushed into tiny pockets, and the only action the AI does is to give reinforcements to these units, to the Küstrin garrison. That makes sense, actually. So turn control back to us now. And finally, we start by breaching the garrison, the victory hex. And now that its entrenchment is gone, I decide to bomb it, because that removes some of the malice. It still was a bad one because it's in a city hex, so the air attacks get less of a chance to cause any damages. So we receive a malus basically. And now we need to capture this hex. And so what I do is move a unit in, attack, and move it out. And make sure that the unit can move out, so that other units can go to its place and hopefully finish the job here. We finally destroy it, and it doesn't matter what unit we use to capture the hex, because in the next turn none of these AI controlled units will be able to attack. And if we can just keep them completely isolated, which we should, because we have all the units that we would ever need, then it will be fine. So it's from now on, from this moment on, at least on this front sector, it's only we're only having fun, and we are not going to try to suicide our units. We can wait. There is no rush here anymore, so we are perfectly safe as long as the AI cannot crawl back into supply, and they obviously won't be able to. And we're fine. So these 3 units won't be able to move at all, and this unit can crawl to the northwest if it wants to, but that's also not a very good idea. So let's rush towards Bydgoszcz or Bromberg, and let's try to capture it as well. This was not a mistake. For some reason, the tanks always opted to go directly in the northwest and only come across to the supply road hex is here, so I make sure that our supply is stable, and yeah, it sure is. It reaches everywhere, and I also make sure that this tank rushes just as far forward that that it still remains in supply. So I don't care if we lose one movement point on this turn, but at least we are not threatened that we would run out of supply, because I don't know how I will have to use it in the next turns, and I don't want to have to give up on it, so to speak, for a turn because it ran out on this turn. That would be quite silly. So we finally captured that second supply source from the AI, and yeah, and we're just progressing. I made sure to capture the victory hexes so that if the AI happens to spawn anything here, then it doesn't get a free win against us, or it cannot cause us to lose like that. And yeah, on this turn I still move the units, but not on the next turn, and I'm not going to bother with that anymore. This is how we finish. Oh, I actually even allocated the infantry gun to this tank, which is great. It's a veteran unit with the better stats. It's a superior tank formation, and more importantly, since it's still in supply, this unit will turn active, or this step will turn active the next turn. Alright, the AI cannot do anything, so it doesn't really do much. It tries to crawl out back to supply. As we can see, it's literally impossible for it to happen, so that was a pointless move. And it allocated one step to this unit, which is also pointless. We need to capture this on the next turn, so this step won't ever turn to active. But even if it had allocated that to the Küstrin garrison, that would have also been pointless, because once we capture the final supply source that the AI has, then it's obviously it's all lost anyway, so it wouldn't be able to turn active no matter where it allocated it, so that's fine. Alright, our turn 5 turns are getting much quicker now. Let's capture this victory hex. It's not at all difficult. Bang, and it isn't. And now this is kind of crucial. We come here, and if we manage to connect up, which shouldn't be a problem, that means that our supply will start counting down from here, which is excellent. And I come here so I can calculate it, so I can see that that we can run exactly this far, and we capture the final enemy supply source. Actually, our supply reaches barely up until that hex, which means that a few things: the enemy won't be able to reinforce. It can still deploy units, by the way, even if it's not in supply, and yeah, so and it's going to start to run dry, since it's we only need to capture this unit on turn 7, or this victory hex rather. We only need to destroy this unit on turn 7. It means that we can wait until it runs out of half of its active steps, but we are not going to wait for that, because we don't have to. Alright. Now once again, I was maybe a bit paranoid. I was a bit afraid that the AI would spawn units, so I tried to remove as much of the blue or purple, whatever, that I can. And in the east, since there is nothing threatening us at all whatsoever, there is no danger, I decide to remove the remaining AI controlled units. As you can see, this goes without any problems. And here this unit gets repulsed and even destroyed, so we have to make sure to sit one unit there. It's not a mistake to attack this unit now. It cannot retreat into even an empty hex if it's not under the AI's control, so I was hoping we would corner it instead, but that didn't come to pass, unfortunately. Alright, this unit gets removed for sure. Yep. And yeah, and this unit also gets removed. I was thinking that this tank unit won't ever be able to reach the front line, so why not use it here? And the idea is now that yeah, the supply route lines are all connected. It looks quite impressive, I'd say. So let's try to remove the last straggler AI controlled unit. Bang. And this is the end of our turn. At this moment the AI has one unit, it cannot reinforce it, it has no supply sources left, and yes, and oh no, sorry, 2 units. and the whole might of the Red Army are rushing up against them. There I cannot do anything, so it doesn't. And on this turn, I already start assaulting it. I'm thinking that we don't need to wait. There is not much point. It will be weaker anyway, so let's start weakening it. Even if we suffer casualties, that's literally the end of the game now that we are here. And the same goes against the Poznan garrison, which actually didn't go well. Already on our first attack, the city turned into ruins, so I may have, maybe I should have stopped here. But again, I'm not going to use these units for anything else, so why not use them here, even if it was a pretty bad move. As you can see, on the AI 6th turn, they actually lost half of their remaining supply, so the Festung Posen only has the 88 flak active, everything else is just practically dead. And the Küstrin garrison, our final opponent, basically has 1+1 specialist step active. So let's see. We finally suppressed the 88 for the Posen garrison, and of course now it's even if it's in a city that is ruined, it cannot halt our assault. And in fact, we make the connection. And yeah, just out of fun, I try to remove as much of the purple once again as possible. Yep. And launch the final assault against the final garrison. Since we removed the 88 gun, I decide to bomb it twice. It's a clear hex, so there is no city to turn into ruin. And now there is one suppressed step which we overrun. And at this moment we can make sure to capture territory, I guess, from the AI. And we win. The end. All the supply road hexes are captured, and only very few hexes are not in our hands. There are no enemy units whatsoever in the map. Alright, so this is how you do it. Once again, the strategy is very simple. On turn 1, try not to assault the entrenched panzer divisions, rather attack the infantry and try to grind them down. Do not attack around Warsaw. You will just suffer casualties and you won't achieve anything. On turn 2, you can try to remove all remaining units here. Turn 1, capture Lodz or Łódź, and turn towards the northeast, and then just take care of the remaining pocket here. What's really crucial is not to get bogged down. If you think a lot of your infantry units can take care of something, then don't waste your armored units there. You have an infinite amount of infantry units, so don't worry about losing one or two of them. You need to really rush ahead. The resistance is insignificant, but the distances are huge. So that's basically it. Oh, and also one more thing to make sure that the supply route is continuously connected. So you have to capture Katowice, of course Łódź, and here up until this point everything basically. So this was Vistula-Oder. I thank you all for watching. I hope this helps you if you're struggling with this one. See you all next time. Bye bye.